Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Talk Thursdays. My name is Pascale Hansen. I'm the CEO, co-founder, and financial strategist at Zada, a consulting firm servicing North America. What makes us unique is that we partner with the best experts in every field of business to help champion the business growth of our clients, and Talk Thursdays are my conversations with some of them. I hope you enjoy this episode. So today I'm having a conversation with one of our experts, Dominic. Dominic has an established track record as a business security leader. He's served in critical roles on numerous projects, including security strategy and development, endpoint security management in all industries, financial services, government, telecommunications, and critical infrastructure. So as a chief strategist at ever-daunting, Dominic focuses much of his energy on helping startups and small to mid-sized businesses with their cybersecurity challenges. His company specializes in performing on-demand cybersecurity services for understaffed and overburdened larger enterprises. So thanks for being with me here today, Dominic.
Thank you so much for having me, Pascal. I really, really appreciate it.
You're always helpful, and I know you're an expert in your field, so thank you.
Thank you.
To get started, what does every business need to think about when they're thinking of cyber risk?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think to me, it starts off with mindset, and recognizing that regardless if you're a small business, if you're a 5-person company, 50-person company, 500-person company, really what businesses need to understand is that every organization has cyber risk, right? We live in an age where everything's online. With an extremely digital age, and I always jokingly say that unless you're selling tacos at the back of a Volvo and all cash deals, you are a digital company. We're all digital companies, and as such, that comes with cyber risk. So it's really that mindset, understanding that this isn't the mid-90s anymore. Cyber risk is clear and present, and as a business owner or executive, you need to understand that that's a risk you need to be aware of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I should add quickly, I forgot to mention it in the beginning, Dominic is a contributor to Elevate, which is our online program where we teach different topics from A to Z, everything that a business owner should be aware of. So you can check out a lot of great content in Elevate as well. So what are some of the common cyber risks that small businesses should be worried about?
Yes, another good question. Another thing I should mention as well, I'm joined by my 4-year-old in my home office here. So if you hear noises that sound like cars, that's him driving them around. But in terms of those cyber risks that every business should be aware of, there's two that I really like to focus on. One is ransomware. So ransomware, for those who aren't aware of what that is basically, think of it like kidnapping of the 21st century. It's where your data files, your IT systems are held for a ransom, often in a form of a virtual currency that you have to pay in order to regain access to them. It's something which is absolutely running amok, particularly among small and mid-sized organizations that traditionally have not had to invest in cybersecurity. So that's one of the biggest risks, the cyber risks that we're seeing right now. The other one, I'd say, is less of a technical one and focuses more so on the fact that a lot of humans are still very unaware when it comes to cybersecurity or digital safety. It takes the form of what's often referred to as a business email compromise. So that's a fancy term, which basically is saying that think of this example. It's like you get an email that it looks like it comes from your CEO or CFO, and it's being sent to accounts payable, and it's asking for you to send a new wire transfer of $50,000 to a brand new vendor that you never heard of. And because it looks like it came from the CFO, you're not going to think twice. So that's something which we're seeing happening quite a bit. And again, it's not anything which is necessarily being broken from a technical perspective. It's more so from the procedural and people immaturity around cybersecurity, where we're seeing that really taking a hit. And again, that's primarily with smaller organizations, which tend to be less mature around their procedural and people aspects of cybersecurity.
Yeah, and I think often with small businesses, when they're getting started, one thing that's easy to forget is that you need those internal controls as well, like knowing, putting restrictions on what staff has access to, and not just one person having access to all your accounting and then, they never take vacation. That's always like a red flag. They might be stealing from you, things like that. I've heard that story actually pretty often. They're like, oh, well, I trusted her. I knew her for years, and.
Well, and it's it's funny in that, you know, I've often heard that when either back in my corporate days or with prospects or clients, they'll say, well, we trust our staff, we trust our employees. It's not a matter of not trusting them. That's not an issue. I'm not saying, you know, wear a tinfoil hat and assume everyone's out to get you. It's not about that. But what really it's about is understanding that in this day and age, it's just like how accounting has sort of standards of good practice. These are good practices from a cybersecurity perspective, right? It's not about not trusting, but it's foolish, I would argue, to not have some best practices in place, which again, restrict access to certain, whether it be key files, key folders, to only to whoever needs access to that. Shouldn't be access to everyone. Just again, it's not really rocket science, because if it was, I wouldn't be in this. But
Yeah.
really, it's about taking those small, measurable steps, which can go a long way in terms of reducing risk.
Yeah, and the cost of not doing it is enormous. So just do it, even though it may not be
Exactly.
the sexiest thing you have to do in your business, but it'll give you peace of mind. So
true.
what are 2 or 3 things that every small business should do to be more secure, like something they could do today?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things I always say to prospects and clients is leverage multi-factor authentication, and especially around your email and remote access. Now, there's some people who aren't really sure what multi-factor authentication is, and I'll break it down quite simply. Right now, to access your email or any web-based system, it still relies heavily on username and password. And I hate to break it to people, but that as a security technology, I mean, that's been around for eons, right? Like back to the 30s and 40s with the original computers, right? Those big things which were the size of a house, right? Technology's come a long, long way, but for some reason, our security paradigm has not evolved. We're basically using a security paradigm which was broken, 30 or 40 years ago. So it's important to leverage what's called multi-factor authentication. That way, it's your username, your password, and you can authenticate another way. So it's often through a mobile device like a smartphone. So as an example, you could get an SMS text message with a PIN. You enter that PIN as part of the login process. Or you get a notification on your phone saying, is this you trying to sign in? And you click yes. Or you could leverage these different hardware, what are called hardware key tools, which pop up with a PIN, and you enter that. So there's different ways of using multi-factor authentication. Some are cheaper than others. So SMS text is fairly inexpensive. But what is important in all of this is recognizing that just using username and passwords is a broken model. Right? And in this day and age, pretty much every modern technology, whether it be Microsoft Office 365, whether it be Google G Business Suite, they all offer multi-factor authentication. The problem is that most people don't take the time to configure it, and it's fairly straightforward. It's very simple to do. So that would be my number one. My number two would be take the time to make your staff more aware about security threats. Again, this doesn't mean you have to sit them down once a year in that boring 1 hour training. There's some really great free platforms. One of my favorite platforms I recommend to my clients is called Wizer, W-I-Z-E-R. You can get great free videos. It's great because it uses what is referred to as micro content. So short 2-minute videos that you can send to your staff maybe once a month, right? And having those more frequent micro content touch points can allow people and employees to become more familiar with the different cyber threats out there, right? So multi-factor authentication, and start making your staff more aware when it comes to cybersecurity awareness.
That's great. That sounds like it'd be really easy to do.
Very easy.
Yeah. So cybersecurity is for the I team, or is it for a service provider to deal with if it's not a business risk?
Good. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, why is that statement dangerous for business owners?
Yeah. It's one of my triggers actually. It always triggers me when they say, well, isn't this something that I pay the IT guy or my IT team or my IT service provider? And what, it's coming from a CEO or an executive or business owner, right? Why should I worry about it? And the thing I always go back to is that this is not an IT issue. This is not something that you push away and put into the closet that IT deals with. It is a business risk. It is no different than operational risk, financial risk, personnel risk. It is a risk that faces the organization. And again, there's a board of directors, the executives, they have a fiduciary duty to make sure that they are providing the right oversight and guidance when it comes to risks facing the organization. So they'd be skirting their fiduciary duties and potentially opening themselves up to lawsuits or legal action if it's proven after a data breach or something that the executives and/or a board, if one exists within an organization, did not take cybersecurity seriously, that they did not treat it as a business risk. So that's why it's so important that organizations treat it as a risk. It's not a function of IT.
Well, I would say it was a fundamental risk, because if you lose everything that you have that's proprietary, all your data, all your clients,
Yep.
and your money, I mean, what have you got left?
It's funny, you know, one of the questions I often pose to what I refer to as more difficult prospects is I always say, you know, who has the most to lose? Is it those big Fortune 500 companies when it comes to cyber risk, or is it the small mid-sized business? And inevitably they always say, oh, it's a larger business, right? They have far more money to lose. I would say, well, that's actually incorrect, right? Because they have the war chest to survive a data breach. They have the war chest to survive a massive security incident, or something that knocks them offline for a week. Your average small or mid-sized business does not have that war chest. Cyber risk is an existential risk to every small and mid-sized business in this country.
So how does Cyber SE help small businesses?
Our goal in all of this is to provide greater leadership to boards, to executives, to business owners. Because again, your average business owner doesn't understand cybersecurity, nor should they, right? They are experts in their domain, in their field. So our goal in all of this is to be able to provide very clear, thought out leadership in terms of what needs to be done, right? I often refer to us as the conduit between the business and IT, or the technical team, whether they be in-house or outsourced. Because often many organizations, there's that fundamental disconnect, right? IT doesn't talk to the business and the business doesn't talk to IT. Or if they do, neither side understands one another. So our goal in all of it is to make sure that from a technical perspective, the right controls are in place to reduce cyber risk. And we're able to communicate that through a risk lens to the business, to the executives, to the board. But our other goal in all of this is to make sure that we support executives to make sure that they feel confident they are doing the right oversight and guidance when it comes to managing and optimizing cyber risk.
Yeah, just a basic box you need to check. So,
for sure.
So thank you. That's all really valuable information. So to finish off, I just have one random question, which has nothing to do with cybersecurity. And that question is, if you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh boy, that is random.
I know it's very random. It throws everybody off, but I think it's a good way to get people to get insight to people.
Gosh, you know, one of the it's fine trying to narrow that down. I'd say that I'd like to have a dinner party with a whole bunch of people, but for me, and I'll somewhat show my my roots here, but my childhood idol growing up was Patrick Waugh. So when he was the goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens, I still have his in the background there, his mask there. And I would love to have dinner with him, because it was from the moment I fell in love with him and with being a goalie, that type of mindset of how you were a defender, that mindset actually helped me become very interested in cybersecurity, where you have that defender mindset. So I could argue that, you know,
that actually makes sense to me, but I would never think that. So
yeah, because of him, I got into this field. So that would be my answer to that lovely random question.
Okay, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much for your time, Dominic, and thank you everyone who was watching or listening. If you have any questions for us, you can always reach us at info@zadacorp.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.